Hey everyone, welcome to the Chilling Hour, where the stories never let you sleep. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 43 years old, and I've been driving trucks for over 2 decades. I'm telling you all this because I don't know how much time I've got left before the thing that followed me finally catches up. People think truckers are fearless. Long highways, wild weather, rough stops, rowdy encounters. But none of that compares to what I saw one night on Route 191 in northern Arizona. I've tried to explain this before, but nobody listens. They think I'm sleep-deprived, hallucinating, or too deep into road paranoia. But no hallucination follows you for years. No illusion scratches your truck door while you sleep in the cab. No road mirage whispers your name even when the engine is off. The things I'm about to tell you happened exactly the way I'm about to say them. Daniel. Voice low, strained. It was November 3rd, 2022. Cold, dry, moonless night. I was hauling a load of steel beams from Phoenix up toward Moab. The route was long, lonely, and the kind of dark that makes your headlights feel like matchsticks in a cave. Some truckers love that solitude. They call it peaceful. I used to think so too, until the night the highway turned on me. About 50 miles past Kayenta, I noticed something strange. There weren't any other vehicles, not even a distant pair of headlights. Usually you get a couple truckers, some RV people, maybe some night drivers. But nothing. Just black road and the sound of my diesel engine pulling steady. Then my radio crackled. Not CB, my actual radio, which I had turned off hours ago. A faint voice pushed through the static. Radio voice. Daniel? Pull over. I froze. I reached for the dial, but before I touched it, the voice came again, clearer this time. Radio voice. Mercer. Stop the truck. I slammed my palm against the power button. The radio was already off. No display. No backlight. No signal. It still kept talking. You're going the wrong way. My mouth dried up. My hands tightened around the wheel. Who the hell is this? The voice stopped. Only static remained, but not normal static. This had a faint hiss underneath, like someone breathing too close to the mic. I should have stopped right then. I should have called dispatch. But I didn't. I kept going, trying to tell myself it was cross-signal interference or somebody pranking. 5 minutes later, the temperature inside the cab dropped fast. It went from a normal 60 degrees to something like the inside of a freezer. My breath fogged. The heater was blasting hot air, yet the cold crept up my spine like a hand. Then the smell hit me. Rotting mud, wet soil, something old and buried. I gagged. It filled the whole cab instantly, like someone had dumped a pile of damp dirt on the dashboard. My eyes watered. I reached for the vent, and then I saw it. In my side mirror. A man running beside my truck. But he wasn't really running. He glided. His clothes were shredded, like he'd crawled through barbed wire, and his skin... God, his skin looked like dried clay cracking apart. His eyes were pure white. No pupils, just white. He kept pace with me even though I was doing 65. My heart stopped. I jerked the wheel. The truck swayed. When I looked again, he was gone. Just dark highway. I kept driving, faster now, hands shaking, boots tapping uncontrollably against the floor. And then, a loud bang hit the passenger door. I almost had a heart attack. Another bang. Then another, like fists pounding metal. Something outside the truck was trying to get in. Jesus Christ. I grabbed my phone, but there was no signal, not even SOS, just dead. The pounding continued. 3 hits, pause, 3 more, rhythmic, deliberate, like a message. My voice cracked. What do you want? The pounding stopped. Silence, complete, empty, heavy. I exhaled shakily. Then, the passenger door handle clicked. Once, twice, slowly. Someone was trying to open the door from outside. I locked it fast, hand trembling violently. The door clicked again, this time harder, like the thing was annoyed. Suddenly my windshield fogged over, not from temperature, but from something breathing on the outside. The fog spread across the glass in one long exhale. A shape formed behind it, a face, pressed against the glass. But it wasn't human. The mouth was stretched too wide, a crooked, gaping grin. The eye sockets were deep and empty, and the skin was peeling like stale paint. My stomach flipped. The lights on the dashboard flickered. The engine sputtered, and the face on the windshield grinned wider. Get away. Get away from me. I floored it. The truck roared. The figure vanished from the windshield like smoke blown off a mirror. I drove for nearly 20 minutes before seeing any sign of civilization. A small gas station came into view. A single flickering light above the pumps and a convenience store that looked abandoned. I didn't care. I needed people, noise, light, anything. I pulled in fast, tires crunching gravel, engines still rumbling. I jumped down from the cab and scanned the area. No one. The station was operating, lights on, pumps active, but there wasn't a soul around. I ran toward the store, yanking the door open. A bell chimed overhead, but the sound felt weak, almost muffled. The inside was colder than the outside. The lights buzzed aggressively. Rows of snacks, dusty shelves, old magazine racks, and behind the counter, a man sat on a stool. He hadn't moved since I entered. Daniel? Sir? Hey, listen, I need help. There's something out there, something following my truck. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's trying to, sir? The cashier's head rose slowly, too slowly. His eyes were open, wide, lifeless. His skin was pale gray, like he hadn't seen light in days. His lips parted, and in a voice identical to the one on my radio earlier, he whispered, "Daniel, you shouldn't have stopped. My legs nearly gave out." I stumbled backward, knocking over a rack of chips. Bags scattered across the floor. The cashier stood. Not naturally. His limbs jerked like a puppet being forced upright. He took one step forward. His neck cracked loudly. His jaw unhinged further than any human jaw should. "Keep driving." That was all he said. Then his skull caved in as if something crushed it from inside. His body dropped like a sack. Blood pooled around him. I screamed and bolted out the door. I ran so hard I tripped over my own boots, but kept crawling until I reached the truck. I jumped in, slammed the door, locked everything, and hit the gas. I didn't stop driving, didn't blink, didn't breathe normal. 3 miles down the road, my phone suddenly buzzed. Signal restored. I grabbed it fast. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. Every instinct told me not to. But my stupid, desperate brain needed a voice. Any voice. "Hello-o!" Look behind you. I threw the phone. Let it bounce off the passenger seat. I kept my eyes glued to the road. But in my mirror, something shifted. A white shape crawled up from the back of my trailer, pulling itself over the tarp like a spider. It gripped the edge. It lifted its head. It was the same clay-skinned man I'd seen running beside the truck. He crawled down the trailer toward the cab, limbs bending wrong, like his bones were rubber. I floored the gas again. 80. 85. 90. The truck shook. The figure kept crawling, undisturbed, expressionless. My chest felt like it might split from panic. Then he reached the roof of the cab. I heard the metal warp under his weight. He dragged his fingers across it. Slow, scraping sounds that made my teeth hurt. I screamed at him, even though I knew it meant nothing. "Leave me alone," another voice answered. From inside my cab, right behind me. "Voice, we can't." I whipped around. There was no one there. But the air behind me was shifting, like a heat mirage, but cold, swirling cold. Then something touched my neck. 2 fingers. Ice cold, rough. I jerked forward so hard I slammed into the steering wheel. I nearly lost control. The truck fishtailed but steadied. When I looked back up, a figure was standing in the middle of the road, the same one. Clay skin, shredded clothes, no eyes. He stood exactly in my lane, arms hanging, head tilted. I couldn't stop, not at that speed. I braced. The truck plowed right into him. There was a sound like hitting wet sand. But he didn't break. He didn't even fall. He passed through the truck, right through the cab, and for one horrible second, his face overlapped with mine. I saw inside his mouth, rows of jagged, broken teeth, and behind them, darkness that had no end. A void. A place people shouldn't see. And I heard him. Inside my skull. "We ride with you now." I blacked out. When I woke up, daylight was seeping dustily through the windshield. My truck was parked on the shoulder of a scenic overlook near Moab. I don't remember pulling over. I don't remember stopping the engine. Hours had passed. My phone buzzed with messages from dispatch asking if I was dead. I climbed out slowly, legs like rubber, lungs barely functioning. The truck's cab was normal, perfectly normal, except for the dirt. A thin layer of reddish clay covered the dashboard, the seat, the steering wheel, fingerprint streaks everywhere, long ones. I looked at the passenger door, 3 deep dents like knuckles. I looked at the windshield, a faint imprint of a face, still visible. I cleaned nothing, drove straight to the nearest depot and quit. Right there. 20 plus years, gone in a blink. I abandoned the truck, told them to burn it for all I cared. But here's the worst part. It didn't end there. Every few weeks, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, the smell returns. Wet soil, rotting mud. My radio turns on by itself, and I hear the voice again. Voice? Daniel? Keep driving. 3 months ago, I woke up in my home to find clay footprints leading from my front door to my bedroom. 2 months ago, I heard something tapping on my bedroom window. 3 taps. Pause. 3 more taps. Last week, my bathroom mirror fogged up while I was brushing my teeth. A message appeared in the condensation. We ride with you now. I haven't driven a truck since that night, but whatever I saw, it doesn't care. It's still with me. Sometimes I feel cold breath on my neck when I'm alone. Sometimes I hear footsteps behind me even when I'm in the shower. Sometimes, in reflections, I see a clay-skinned figure standing just behind my shoulder, smiling. I don't know why it chose me. I don't know what it wants. I just know it's getting closer. And if you're listening to this, if you drive those dark desert routes at night, if you hear your radio crackle with a voice that shouldn't exist, don't answer. Don't stop. And God, whatever you do, don't look in the mirrors. Story, the end.
Story number 2.
My name is Aaron Blake. I'm 39 years old, and I've been driving trucks since I was barely old enough to hold a commercial license. I've crossed every major highway in the United States, hauled freight through blizzards, tornado warnings, and stretches of desert so empty they feel like the end of the world. Truckers like me see strange things sometimes. Lights on the horizon that shouldn't be there. People walking the highway in places no person could survive. But none of it ever scared me. Not until last winter. Not until him. It was early December 2021 when my dispatcher sent me on a solo haul from Oregon to Kansas. It was a long stretch that would keep me mostly on Interstate 80, flat, cold, and lonely that time of year. The kind of highway where you can drive for hours without seeing another soul. On my second night, sometime after midnight, a storm rolled in. Snow fell in sheets that danced in my headlights. The wind slammed against my trailer hard enough to make the cab sway. I told myself I'd find a rest stop soon and call it for the night. Even for a veteran driver, whiteout conditions can turn deadly fast. But the next rest stop was over 50 miles away. About 20 minutes into the storm, my CB radio crackled. I wasn't tuned to any channel. I'd turned the volume down earlier because I didn't want chatter distracting me. Still, the speaker hissed, then clicked. A voice broke through. Aaron! I flinched so hard my hands nearly slipped off the wheel. No one should have known my name. No one was even speaking on the channel. I grabbed the mic with trembling fingers. Who is this? Static. Then the sound of breathing, slow, raspy. And then a whisper, almost swallowed by the storm. Pull over. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. What did you say? This time, the whisper came sharper, urgent. Pull. Over. Now. My pulse hammered as fear and confusion tangled inside me. If this was some sick prank, it was a damn good one. But the storm was getting worse. If someone knew something I didn't, an accident ahead, a closure, anything, I couldn't ignore it. So I slowed down, eased onto the shoulder, and parked. The second I put the truck in park, the radio cut out completely, dead silent, like it had never come alive to begin with. I sat there for a long moment, heart crashing inside my chest. Snow slammed the windshield, building in thick layers. The storm had turned into a full-on blizzard. Maybe the voice saved me from driving into something bad. Maybe it was all coincidence. That's what I told myself. But then, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow taps. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Nobody should have been out there. Nobody could have been walking in those conditions. I leaned slightly toward the window and pulled the curtain back just a sliver. A man stood outside. He wore an old trucker jacket, the kind from the early 80s, faded denim soaked with snow. A frayed ball cap covered most of his face, but I could still see the outline of his jaw, the dark, hollow shapes where his eyes should have been. He was standing too still, too close. I cracked the window half an inch. Can I help you? His voice was low, like gravel being crushed. You shouldn't be out here. I swallowed hard. Storm caught me. He nodded slowly, too slowly. Then he lifted his hand and pressed it against the window. His fingers were blue. Not frostbitten, dead blue. Lifeless. You need to come with me, he said. It's not safe in your truck. I slammed the window shut and locked the doors, shaking. Everything about him felt wrong. Not dangerous like a criminal, more like dangerous in the way a broken elevator cable is dangerous. A silent threat. He didn't move, just stared through the glass with those empty eye sockets. I reached for my phone. No signal. "Please leave," I shouted. He didn't respond. Then, slowly, he turned and walked away, vanishing into the snowstorm as if he'd melted into it. I didn't dare move for almost a minute. My breath fogged the cab, hands trembling so hard I could barely keep the flashlight steady when I picked it up. I convinced myself he was some stranded driver. Maybe frostbite had done a number on him. Maybe he was delirious. But then the radio crackled again. This time the voice was feminine and familiar. "Aaron?" My blood ran ice cold. "What do you want?" I said. The woman's voice came clearer now, more urgent. "He's coming back." I stared at the radio like it had grown teeth. "Who is?" Static. Then, barely audible, the lost trucker. The radio shut off. I didn't know who that was. Never heard of anything like it. But fear turned my veins to cement. I started the engine again, thinking I'd rather risk driving blind than stay parked with whoever that man was. But before I could shift into drive, something slammed against the back of my trailer. The truck lurched violently. Metal groaned. Containers rattled. I twisted in my seat, staring at the side mirror. Nothing. Just blinding snow. Another slam. This time closer. Against the cab itself, shaking the entire truck. I floored the gas. The tires spun for a moment, skidding on the icy shoulder, then caught traction. The truck roared forward onto the highway. I kept both hands on the wheel, white-knuckled, praying I wouldn't skid into a ditch. But whatever had hit my truck wasn't done. Through the swirling snow behind me, a shape began to form. A trailer. A cab. A massive semi-truck. Blackened, rusted, covered in frost. No headlights, no marker lights, no engine hum, just a giant rolling shadow barreling forward on silent wheels. I blinked hard, thinking my mind was filling in the snowstorm with hallucinations. But the truck kept coming, faster, closer. It was on me in seconds, tailgating so close I couldn't see anything behind me anymore. "Holy hell, back off!" I yelled, though the sound vanished into the storm. My truck shook as the phantom rig nudged me. Not enough to send me off the road, but enough to make one thing clear. It wanted me alive. For now. I swerved into the left lane, tires screaming on the snow. The black truck followed instantly, gliding like it wasn't affected by the ice at all. Every instinct told me speeding up was suicidal, but slowing down would be worse. Then my radio clicked on again. The woman's voice whispered, "Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop." I gritted my teeth and pressed the accelerator harder. But the black truck was gaining. Closer. Closer. I could almost feel cold air pouring from its grill into my cab. Then, for the first time, I saw the driver. A silhouette inside the cab window. But the silhouette wasn't sitting. It was hanging. A limp body suspended by something wrapped around its neck. The head twisted unnaturally toward the windshield, as if staring straight at me. The lost trucker. I almost lost control of my rig right there. Years of driving experience were the only thing that kept me steady. "Go away," I breathed. "Please, go away." But the silent truck lunged forward, its bumper scraping my trailer, sending sparks through the snow. I swung the wheel right, aiming for an off-ramp I could barely see through the storm. The moment my tires hit it, the truck behind me vanished again, swallowed by the blizzard. I didn't stop driving until I reached a gas station. One of those 24-hour places with flickering lights and a clerk who looked half asleep behind bulletproof glass. When I stepped out, my legs almost gave out under me. I walked around my trailer slowly, expecting to see dents from the hits. But there was nothing. Not a single scratch. I must have looked half crazed when I stumbled inside. The clerk raised an eyebrow. "You look like you wrestled a snow beast out there." I didn't answer. I just grabbed a coffee with shaking hands. The clerk hesitated, then said, "Storm's been bad tonight. Strange things happen on I-80 this time of year." I froze. "What things?" He glanced toward the window, then leaned closer. "Truckers talk. Stories get around." His voice dropped. "About the one who never made it out of a blizzard years back. Jackknife collision. No one ever found his body." I swallowed. "You're saying he's still out there?" "Some folks say when the storm gets real bad, he starts looking for company." My blood went cold. "Like he wants someone to help him?" The clerk shook his head slowly. "No, not help, replacement." I didn't sleep that night. Even inside the lit-up parking lot, I kept imagining blackened headlights materializing from the snow. The next morning, the storm passed, and I continued the route. I delivered on time, never told my dispatcher what happened, never told my wife either. But since that night, something's changed. On long winter roads, especially when snow starts to fall just right, I see things in my mirror. Shapes, shadows, a rusted truck several miles behind me that disappears when I blink. And sometimes the CB radio clicks on. Sometimes the woman's voice whispers warnings. And sometimes I hear the other voice. The cold, rasping one I heard outside my cab, calling my name, telling me to pull over, telling me it's time to come with him. And every time I hear it, I wonder how long I can keep outrunning a ghost that doesn't get tired, doesn't get lost, and doesn't forget the ones it chooses. Story the end.
Story number 3.
My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm 42 years old, and I've been a long-haul trucker for nearly 20 years. I've driven across almost every state, through blizzards, storms, and stretches of highway so desolate they feel like the edge of the world. Over the years, I've seen things that made other drivers shake their heads. Shadowy figures on empty highways, strange lights hovering in the distance, or the odd hitchhiker that disappears before you can get close. But nothing I'd ever experienced compared to the night that changed me forever. The night I met the thing truckers whisper about, but never talk about openly. It was the winter of 2019, early December. I was hauling freight from Minneapolis to Dallas, a long stretch along I-35. The road was familiar, quiet at night, especially in the northern sections where the only sounds were the hum of the tires on asphalt and the occasional howl of wind across the plains. I had left around 10 p.m., the sky black and empty, snow dusting the shoulder, and I planned to push through the night. Somewhere near Albert Lea, Minnesota, I noticed a figure on the side of the highway. At first, I thought it was another stranded driver or a hitchhiker, though I've learned long ago not to pick up anyone on a deserted interstate. But there was something wrong about this person. She was a woman, standing in the snow, motionless, dressed in what looked like a faded coat over a dress. Her hair was long, dark, and whipped across her face by the wind. I slowed my truck, keeping a careful distance. "You okay?" I called out through the wind. She didn't answer. She just turned her head slowly and stared straight at me. That's when I noticed her eyes. They were completely black. Not shadowed, not bruised, not dilated pupils. Entirely black. I slammed my foot on the accelerator and kept moving. Even at highway speeds, I couldn't shake the feeling she was watching me. That's when my CB radio sparked to life, crackling over the static. "Aaron." I froze. "My name isn't Aaron. Who's there?" I barked into the mic. There was nothing but static. Then, through the hiss, I heard a whisper. "He's coming." My heart pounded. I had heard ghost stories, legends, things old truckers swore by. But hearing it directly, was something else. I shook my head and told myself it was fatigue. Maybe the storm playing tricks on me. I kept driving, the snow picking up, the highway narrowing into a white blur. Then I saw headlights in the distance. Another semi. But something was off. The lights weren't moving naturally. They flickered in a strange pattern, and the truck seemed to grow larger as it approached. It was too big, too fast for normal traffic, and it made no engine noise. The truck appeared in my rearview mirror suddenly, close enough that I could see the outline of a driver, though his face was completely dark, like a void. I tried to speed up, but it followed. No horn, no lights, just relentless. Every time I checked my mirrors, it was closer. Panic set in. I swerved onto the shoulder, thinking maybe I could shake it off. The black truck followed. My trailer rattled under the force of its ghostly presence. It nudged me from behind, hard enough to make the rig fishtail slightly. I pressed the gas harder, praying the road ahead would open up, that some other truck or a passing patrol car would appear. Then the radio crackled again. "Don't stop! Don't let him catch you!" It was a woman's voice this time. I recognized it from the figure on the roadside earlier. I floored the gas. I had no idea where I was heading, only that stopping wasn't an option. The black truck kept pace, silent and menacing. Every muscle in my body screamed to pull over, to hide, to escape. Yet instinct told me that staying on the move was the only chance I had. Suddenly, in the snow-filled night, I saw her again. The woman. She was standing on the shoulder, closer this time, pointing down the highway, urging me forward. Her eyes remained black, and her expression was grim. Then the black truck made a move I could never have anticipated. It swerved closer, the cab window coming into view. The driver wasn't sitting upright. He was slumped, twisted, like a puppet whose strings had been yanked. His head hung at a terrible angle, face hidden, mouth opening in a silent scream. I screamed, slammed the wheel, and swerved into the next exit. My tires kicked up snow, trailer fishtailed. I prayed I'd hit a well-lit rest area. Miraculously, I found one. Flickering lights, closed bathrooms, an empty parking lot. I parked, shaking so hard I could barely turn off the engine. For a moment, I thought I was safe. But then there was a knock on the door. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I froze. Nobody should have been out there. The storm was fierce. Visibility was maybe 10 feet. I edged toward the window and peeked. It was him, the driver, the one in the black truck, standing in the snow, lifeless eyes staring right at me. His coat was soaked, snow clinging to it. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. Then, as if satisfied, he faded into the storm. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the truck, engine running, hands gripping the wheel, staring at the empty lot. Morning came, weak and gray. The storm had passed. I got back on the highway and finished my route in silence, feeling eyes on me the entire time. Weeks later, I started researching. Truckers' forums, old legends, ghost stories whispered in bars and truck stops. That's when I found mentions of the lost trucker, a phantom rig that haunts highways during storms, looking for drivers, and a woman who appears as a warning, sometimes saving a life, sometimes luring drivers closer. People claimed the lost trucker wasn't alive, not in the way we understand life. It was said he had died in a winter crash decades ago, but his spirit, or whatever he became, couldn't leave the roads. I've been driving since, over thousands of miles, through storms and empty highways, and I've seen shadows. Sometimes a flicker of black eyes in the roadside trees, or a figure moving in the snow when no one should be there. And every time, I hear the faint crackle of a CB radio, static, then a whisper of my name. I don't know why I survived that night. I don't know why the lost trucker didn't claim me. But I know one thing. The highway doesn't forget. The lost trucker is still out there, stalking the night, and the woman's voice still warns those of us who drive too long, too late, and too far. Every time I see black shadows in the distance or hear a whisper on the radio, I remember that night. I remember the cold hand pressed against my truck, the lifeless eyes of a driver who never got to rest, and the woman who was the only thing standing between me and him. And I pray, every time I take the wheel, that I'm careful, alert, and ready, because the lost trucker never tires, and the highway is his domain. Story the end.
Story number 4.
My name is Robert Bobby Hayes. I'm 46 years old, and I've been a long-haul trucker for more than 25 years. I've driven through every state, seen every kind of weather, and survived every highway nightmare you can imagine. Blizzards, floods, accidents, and more sleepless nights than I can count. But nothing in my life has scared me the way what I'm about to tell you did. And I've tried to forget it, believe me. I've tried to chalk it up to fatigue, or stress, or a hallucination brought on by loneliness. But I know what I saw. I know what I experienced, and I can't keep it bottled up anymore. It happened in the winter of 2016. I was running a route from Chicago to Denver, hauling refrigerated freight, mostly produce. I had been on the road for 2 straight days with minimal rest, relying on coffee and adrenaline to keep me going. The night was bitterly cold, snow clinging to the edges of the road, and most of the country was asleep. I was somewhere in western Iowa, on a stretch of highway that cuts through miles of farmland and nothing else. It's the kind of road where the wind howls and the isolation seeps into your bones. I remember checking my mirrors and feeling that familiar chill of being completely alone. There were no other vehicles around for miles, and the radio had long since fallen silent. I like the quiet, usually. It helps me concentrate, but that night it felt wrong. The kind of wrong that makes your skin crawl and your gut tighten. Then I saw it. A figure on the side of the road, motionless, standing in the snow. At first, I thought it was someone hitchhiking. A foolish thought, considering how dangerous it is. I slowed the truck. I always slow when I see someone on the roadside. It's just good trucking etiquette. But the closer I got, the more unsettling the figure became. It was a man, tall and thin, wearing a dark coat and what looked like an old baseball cap. But the details were wrong. The way he stood, rigid, almost floating above the snow, was unnatural. His face was pale, and his eyes, his eyes were completely black. No whites, just endless dark voids staring straight at me. I froze, gripping the wheel. Before I could make a decision, he lifted one arm and waved, not like a friendly wave, but jerky, mechanical, like a puppet being pulled by strings. My stomach dropped. Something about him screamed danger. I tried to tell myself it was exhaustion, that I was seeing things, but my instincts screamed at me to keep driving. I tried to pass him slowly, keeping my eyes on the road, but then he moved. Too fast. I swear, Bobby Hayes, I've driven thousands of miles, but I have never seen a human move like that. He darted onto the road in a single leap, faster than my truck could accelerate. His feet didn't seem to touch the snow, and yet he covered the distance in seconds. I slammed on the brakes. My truck skidded on the icy asphalt, and I fought the wheel to keep from sliding off into the ditch. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I glanced in the rearview mirror. There he was, chasing me. Not running, but gliding, like a shadow taking form. I yelled at him, "Get the hell away from me!" My voice echoed across the empty fields, but it made no difference. He kept coming. I shifted into high gear and floored it. The truck roared, tires screeching against the ice. I didn't dare look back for a moment, just kept my eyes on the road, praying for headlights, praying for another vehicle, praying for anything to break the spell of that frozen highway. Then I heard it. The sound of metal scraping metal, a slow, agonized grinding that made my stomach turn. I looked in the mirror. The man, whatever he was running along the side of my truck, his long fingers dragging along the steel frame. Sparks flew where his nails touched, tiny flashes that illuminated his face for just a moment. And that face, it was all wrong. His mouth was stretched in a grin too wide to be human. His eyes still black, and the skin of his face seemed to ripple, like wax melting in a fire. I fought to keep control of the truck, my hands white on the wheel. My foot slammed the gas again. My rig groaned under the speed, but he kept pace. My radio crackled suddenly, static filling the cab. Then, through the static, came a voice. Low, guttural, broken. "Stop! Stop the truck! Stop!" I yanked the radio cord out of the dash. Nothing. Silence. But the feeling didn't leave. I could feel him. His presence. Behind me, inside the cab, somewhere I couldn't see but could sense. The air grew thick, like trying to breathe through water. I glanced at the passenger seat. Empty. But I wasn't alone. I made a desperate decision. I knew the next exit was almost 10 miles ahead. I had to risk it. I floored the gas and prayed. The man disappeared from the side of the truck, as if the darkness itself had swallowed him. I didn't breathe again until I was on the exit ramp. I parked my truck under the weak lights of a closed gas station and shook so hard I could barely sit. My phone finally got a signal. And I called my dispatcher. I told him I had hit a deer or some animal. I don't even remember what I said exactly, only that I needed to keep my story plausible. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I sat in my cab, watching the dark highway, listening to every sound the wind made, every creak of my rig, expecting him to appear again. But he never did. Not until later. Weeks later, I did some research, trying to convince myself I had hallucinated. I found a series of reports about a man named Henry Calloway, a trucker who had died in a crash on that same stretch of highway in the late 1970s. The details were eerily similar. He was hit by a rig during a snowstorm, found days later, frozen at the roadside. There were reports of sightings, mostly from long-haul drivers, describing a pale figure in dark clothing, moving impossibly fast, sometimes chasing trucks, sometimes just standing silently along the shoulder. Some said the man who died never left the highway. Some said he sought revenge, or closure, or just needed company. I don't know what the truth is. All I know is what I saw. That night, Henry, or whatever it was, came for me. He was fast, relentless, and not entirely human. I've continued driving, but I've avoided that stretch of highway at night ever since. Some nights, I still dream about it. I feel the cold wind in my face, smell the diesel and snow, hear the scraping metal. I see his face in the shadows of the cab, staring at me with those black, endless eyes and that impossible grin. I've told a few other truckers about my experience. Most laughed, some nodded knowingly. A few whispered warnings, telling me to stay off that road after dark. I learned quickly that they call it the dead man's stretch among drivers who run it regularly, but you won't find it on any official map or website. Only truckers know. I've spent 25 years on the road. I've seen death, accidents, storms, and worse. But that night, the dead man stretch showed me something different. Something alive yet dead, human yet not. Something that defies explanation. Something that still waits out there in the cold, watching, waiting for another rig, another tired driver, someone foolish enough to stop. I don't know why I'm telling this story now. Maybe it's to warn others. Maybe it's to relieve some weight off my chest. All I know is this. If you ever find yourself driving alone on a dark, empty highway, and you see someone standing by the side of the road, don't stop. Don't slow down. Keep your eyes forward and pray you make it past without noticing. Because some people, or some things, never leave the road, and they're not content to let you drive past. Every time I pass a highway sign for that stretch, even in broad daylight, I feel it. A weight in the air, a chill I can't shake. I think of Henry, or whatever that was. And I remember that night when I wasn't just a trucker. I was prey, and I survived, but I'll never forget. Story the end.